in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the KD Ratio. It's your designated podcast for all things nerd.
Yeah.
My name is Kyle, and with me tonight I have
Dylan.
And fucking William.
Damn, we are just so hyped right now.
We got a fucking episode
Got
for you.
a fucking
man.
episode.
It's been too long. I missed it. Boys, it's good to see you.
It is.
Way too long. So we're going to jump into a couple of reviews here, but we're going to open up with something that Dylan has been itching to talk about since last week.
Drop that fly and spill the beans.
All right.
You heard the man. Drop that fly.
I'm really excited to talk about Dead Space Remake. I was a big fan of the original 3. The third one was all right. It got a little bit too EA, microtransaction-y, but I loved all the games. Played them multiple
action-y
times.
for me.
It was
Less
one of
horror.
yeah. It was one of the first games I actually.
Isn't that what EA stands for? Electronic Action?
No, Electronic Arts.
I'm fucking with you, dude.
No,
It's a terrible
No, I
name.
don't think you are. Do you understand? It means Electronic Arts.
Electronic Action. It's in the game.
EA Games. Challenge everything. Do you remember that?
It's in the game.
God, I love that.
EA Sports.
Hey, man, that's stuck with us. That's going to be with us forever. That might
Yeah.
be the last
That's
thing
good
I say
marketing.
on my deathbed. Babe, come here. EA Sports.
It's in the game.
What, babe?
But I got the remake, and I have to say it's amazing. It's probably it might be one of the best remakes we've had. I'm gonna give it that title because it is truly the essence of a remake. It's not
Not a remaster.
wait, it's not a
It's
remaster.
a remake.
It's a remake. They completely remade the game from scratch. They used not from scratch. They used a lot of probably they ported over some stuff, but it looks like a current gen game. And it's the story, they updated it completely. It's the same story, but they added so much to it. They made Isaac in the original, the main character, never talked except for I think 2 sentences, one at the beginning, one at the end. He's an actual voice protagonist now. And he talks, takes off his helmet, and it's such a great remake, and I have nothing but praise for it.
Same voice actor from the second and third game.
Yeah, Gunnar Clark. Gunnar, I think it's Clark, which is funny because it's Isaac Clark.
I was going to say, are you thinking because it's Isaac Clarke?
I know his first name's Gunnar, but great game. I beat it on the hardest difficulty, impossible, and I beat it with one gun.
Jesus.
Impossible difficulty is just hard difficulty, but the
If you
difference
die.
is it's permadeath.
Yeah.
If you die, you have to restart.
I always love that.
And so I played through it on impossible because Dead Space 2 was actually the first game that I beat on the hardest difficulty when I was younger. So I get nostalgic, and it's a game that I can understand and I can do well because I can resource manage. I can shoot the limbs off of these creatures and all that kinds of fun stuff.
Can you talk about the nervous meter, or the game throws things at you?
Oh
if
yeah,
you're,
so
depending on how nervous you are.
so it has this thing called
I can look it up while you describe it.
So there's a specific name. They invented this specific program for the game that will randomly generate scenarios in any room, any hallway you go to. I've tried to figure out what triggers it, and I think it's being 2 rooms away. So if you go into one room and then you go into the next, that first room you were in, I think that's when it becomes available to be messed with. And so what it would do, Intensity Director, there you go, that's the name, is say you there's side missions in the remake, which in the original game there was not. So it gives you actual reason to go back to different parts of the ship and explore. And say, oh shoot, I forgot to do the side mission, I need to go back. In the original game, after you killed enemies, nothing. It was just an empty ship, and there's no fear there because you knew there was no more enemies. This one, if you go back somewhere, there's the possibility that there could be enemies. There's the possibility that there'll be fog. There's a possibility the lights will turn off. There'll be a possibility that all of a sudden the vents will explode. and it's awesome because it makes every area. It never lets you really unwind and feel safe.
Yeah.
You feel like every area is
You're on the edge of your seat.
on the edge, and I the coolest thing for me was seeing how it affected the visuals of each area. Like you can go down one hallway at the beginning of the game, and when you first get there, it's filled with fog, and the lights are kind of like greenish, and it's like, oh, this is like spooky. You come back later, it's just normal hallway, and it's like, oh, so that was the intensity director that made it look that cool, like, and so it does that constantly, and it's awesome. And you'll go in a room, all the lights will be off, and it's like, oh shoot, like, is something gonna happen here? Nothing happens. And then even it goes down to elevators. It'll randomly generate if an elevator has an enemy in it, but it's really rare. I only had it happen once per playthrough.
Wow.
And I didn't even think it was going to happen in my second playthrough because I was almost near the end when it did. I was like, because I got to the point where it happened in the first playthrough, and I was like, wait a sec, this is where it happened. It's not going to happen this time. And then later on, I was like, oh, it's random. And so it's a really awesome feature. I hope they put that in other horror games because it helps keep you on your toes and help keep you not feeling safe. And that, that's how they can build the tension, especially in Dead Space, which is an action-oriented horror game. It's not like Outlast where you have no way to defend yourself. You have ways to defend yourself, but it's just the point of surprise and not, always making sure you're looking around behind your back or around corners and all that.
That's what makes a successful horror game for me. That's what like the shtick of Outlast of constantly just running all the time, like kind of wore me out after a while. I like being able to fight back.
Yes.
And I don't think it loses scariness on being able to fight back. It just gives it's just more
It feels
fun.
helpless.
Yeah, it's more fun.
And they do an amazing job. I'll give props to EA Motive. That's the studio that did this. They did the Star Wars Squadron game, which I know got a lot of praise as well, just because it was a good game, and they made a good game here.
What was the original studio that worked on it?
Visceral,
Okay.
and then
They got shut down.
yeah, they got shut down by EA.
They got bought out by EA and then shut down after they were bought out.
Overall, great game, and even if you're a fan and you played the first one a bunch of times, you have plenty of reason to come play this, because they changed. So they changed it enough to where it's not super different, but it still respects the source material. And then they threw in, if you do a New Game Plus, there's an alternate ending you can get that's completely new, and I would recommend any fan of the series to try and get to it because it was a blast to see, and it was a new take on the ending that I really enjoyed.
Do you think they could use this to relaunch the series?
Oh yeah, definitely. The alternate ending. I'll go into a little spoiler here. Did you play the game, Kyle? Like the original ones?
I did. Yeah, that was one of the first horror games I ever beat, actually.
So in same in Dead Space 2, Isaac builds that marker.
Yeah.
The alternate ending. While I don't think it'd be a perfect segue, it does. It could if they wanted to, but the original ending works too, because it's him being fully mind controlled by the marker. So at the end, he's sitting there in the ship, flying away, and Nicole's a ghost, and she walks up and she goes like, she's like talking to him. He's like, I have a little surprise I'm gonna build for you, and he's like, he's insane, and there's marker writing everywhere, and he wants to build the marker, and so they could use it as like to jump off of, but the original ending too. And they've said in interviews that they're interested in it. They just need to see if EA is willing to let them.
A part of me almost wants this to be like a new timeline, so that they have more freedom to do different things in the second one.
Well, yeah,
rather than remaking Dead Space 2. You know what I mean?
And I feel like they took enough creative freedom with this one that I think they would in the second. Like I don't. And the thing is they did it respectfully, and they only changed stuff that needed more answers, so they could lengthen Dead Space 2. Dead Space 2 was my favorite out of the three. I loved
mine
1,
too.
but 2 was just on another level, and so I think they could take that and kind of flesh it out a lot, and then who knows what they would do with 3. I watched the AMA with the developers, and plenty of people were asking like, would you just remake 3 and they never answered. of course. But they
Makes
said they're
sense.
willing to work on a number 2, but they just need to first decide as a company and also get the okay from EA. But definitely recommend go out buy it if you like horror, if you like space. I am a huge advocate for space horror games. We don't have enough. It's an untapped potential, and
Is
it's
that one Alien Isolation and
I guess Prey.
does that count?
Not really, but it's an untapped potential that I want to see more in because it's like
It's true.
some of the concepts they had in those games are so cool as a gameplay perspective. Like Billy in the third one, even though it has crap, the beginning of the game, you start off in space in a ship graveyard, flying from ship to ship. And they're like, you go inside brand new ships and they're like, necromorphs and you have to get stuff from each ship. That is such a cool gameplay concept of little levels and how to interconnect them.
Yeah.
Love it.
So what's your score out of 10?
I would give it
10 out of 10.
I'd give it 10 out of 10. Yeah, I'll give it a perfect score. I think it is a perfect remake.
It's so funny to hear you say this on the heels of like the Callisto Protocol failure. You know what I mean?
And it made me realize too, at first when I played Callisto Protocol, a little part of me was like, man, did I misremember Dead Space? Like, was it like this? No, it's leagues and bounds so much better than Callisto Protocol. And it's just,
well, because was Callisto, that was a remaster, right?
It was an original concept, but it was kind of like before it was released, everyone looked at it like a spiritual successor to Dead Space.
because one of the
this
creators,
was the very first Callisto Protocol
Yeah.
ever? Oh,
Yeah.
For some reason I thought there was a predecessor.
one of the original creators from Dead Space,
Yeah.
that's his development studio.
That was a bad first go.
And I think it was just mainly for
Time
me,
to bat again.
the combat in that one.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
Callisto
God,
Protocol
funky.
actually has a kind of a cult following right now. People
Really?
online are following it, but it's not nearly as good as Dead Space.
I prefer the combat style of Dead Space because I don't know. I don't know if like stealth is the way to go for like a good horror. Like I think there's a place for it and it works really well in the alien setting. But like I didn't play Callisto Protocol, but I watched a lot of it and it seemed like most of that game is spent stealthing versus Dead Space. It's like fucking Doom Eternal, like all gas, no brake.
Well,
You're just fucking going.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Dead Space is while it's, it gives you the weapons to defend yourself, right? And Callisto Protocol does too, but the way they go about the weapons is it requires you to be calm in an uncalm situation because you have to aim for their limbs. You like if you try and shoot them in the body, you're going to waste ammo and you're going to run out of ammo and you're going to be screwed. So it requires you to actually like be calm and focus on what you're doing while also just murdering. And then, Isaac, I love what they done with his character. So in the original game he's silent. In the second game he's all of a sudden like this hard ass badass dude.
Yeah,
They made it a more natural progression in how he becomes that hard ass.
how he goes from not a hard ass to I've been through some shit.
Yeah. And one of the lines at the end of the game, it hits really nice. There's going into spoilers again. He loses everything, Billy. He has like the worst luck. He goes on this ship to get his girlfriend. Finds out she killed herself. Every human he went with dies. He learns that he thought his wife was alive. It was actually just this alien object manipulating his brain. And it's not actually alien. It's human built of alien technology. But he's just like, he's at the bottom, right? And he's like, man, this sucks. The only human he knew that he kind of trusted betrayed him. And she's getting out of the planet, right? The planet's about to explode because they're about to drop a giant rock on it. He finds this girl, and he's like, let's escape together. She dies. He tries to save her. She dies, and he's like,
I've had it.
Yeah, and so he stands up, and then this giant creature comes out, and he just says, he's like, come on, because this is all I got. And I love that line, because it's like, yeah, like in that moment, it's just like,
You're
you know
just
what?
like, fuck, I
Fuck
got nothing
it.
to lose.
Bring it. I'll take you on, you giant flesh sack.
That puts you in the. That's a good example of putting you into the mindset of the character you're playing.
Exactly. So I think they did a really good job with making him speak. A lot of people were wary about it because he was originally a silent protagonist in it, but I think they did a great job.
I've never been a fan of silent protagonists in games. I get it in some games, like I guess like Elder Scrolls, because like that's a very RP heavy game. Like they
Well, and
want you to.
You are speaking for them essentially.
Yeah, you're choosing but like this isn't an RPG. You
Mhm.
know, like it's
Action.
it's an action, but it's also story driven. So like I feel like you should have a voice protagonist. That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah, so 10 out of 10. Go get it.
I'll have to get it then. I've held off not for any particular reason, but just because
Do it,
there's a
Kyle.
lot of stuff happening
It's
right
so
now.
good. And I could go on forever, but they buffed all the weapons to make them viable.
And they're all satisfying as hell.
Yes, the flamethrower used to be weak, but they brought it up to, I think in Dead Space 2 it started to be good. They brought it up to Dead Space 2 and it makes you feel like you're in the thing with Kurt Russell and you're like
Hell yeah.
so it's nice. But there's other stuff we need to talk about, like 2 whole episodes of Last of Us.
Ooh.
So yeah, let's jump into not the one that just aired,
Episode
but what people are. I read an article that said that was the magnum opus of HBO shows.
I
Do you think it deserves that level of praise?
No. Personally, no.
Well, all right. We'll start with Dylan and we'll work our way down the table here.
Alrighty. Well, I think I'm gonna have the minority opinion.
On episode 3.
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode, but I
Want Joel and Ellie?
given it more time. I just want Joel and Ellie, and I know a lot of people have been emotionally impacted by the story of Bill and Frank, but to me, it didn't resonate on the same level of like people have said it's Up times 10, and Up is sad. Up, I feel emotional. This one, I didn't feel emotional as much as it was just like I felt invested. It was a good episode, but I didn't get my heart stabbed when they decided to die. They were old. It was the apocalypse. It made sense.
Yeah, they lived a whole life
Yeah,
together.
so to me, it wasn't like a gut punch as much as just like, okay.
Yeah, I did not like. I know people who like cried multiple times during that. That was not my wife and I's reaction. It was like this is a if it was a short film, fucking Oscar worthy. Like I thought it was really really well done. I just didn't really. I didn't need to have it in my Last of Us, but it's there and it didn't take away from anything. I definitely think it actually added to the story because. You kind of see how prepared and in another side of the world. That's the thing about Last of Us is it's not really about, the walkers or the zombies or whatever, right? It's like
about the humans.
Yeah. And so I felt like that they're trying to show a lot more of that through it. And I'm okay with that. The story, like the cinematics of it, the overall narrative I thought was actually really, really cool. I felt like how they met was a little weird. Like, he's just all by himself randomly. I get that he's the rest of his party, but like that's a little random, right?
Yeah.
And like he just turns on the gas and he has this whole like thing. I don't know. It was a little too like the dinners he was able to cook. It felt a little too like polished, just so to speak, like in terms of what he was able to create, like he had like just absolutely beautiful spreads of food and stuff and I get that they were doing it for contrasting purposes, but I thought it was a fantastic episode and it like really, really well acted. Nick Offerman always impresses me in terms of his range. It was definitely like one of the manliest, gay scenes I think I've ever seen. There was more chest hair than I've ever seen in that. So it was pretty crazy. Like from when you kind of realize that that's where they were going, because I didn't really remember that from the games. Like they didn't really talk about the relationship, but I didn't know he was gay, so that was like kind of a shock for me when they walked into that. But it was this beautiful love story, and I thought it was really really tasteful in how they handled it, and they showed like each of the characters' personalities and what they needed from the world. Like, if Frank or whatever needed one thing Frank was his lover, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't Nick. What was
Bill.
Bill, thank you. Bill was like, the survivalist, and Frank was like, I just want to paint, and it was like, you know what? He still needs that humanity. Like, that's what brings him life, And so it's kind of this interesting perspective, like, not everybody thinks the same, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought it was fantastic, but I'm right there with you. It's like, I'm sold on the Joel and Ellie, and I want to see as much of that as possible. Kyle, what's your take?
I agree with some things that you both have said. As far as like, yeah, I would like to see more Joel and Ellie, and I do feel like sometimes they are maybe expanding things longer than they need to. But that being said, that was my favorite episode, and it is my favorite episode of the show so far. I thought it was beautifully written. I thought it was well acted. I thought it perfectly set up Joel's future for Ellie. I think that people, they don't really get that, but that you wouldn't really buy into that letter that he leaves Joel as much as you do without knowing his whole story.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Joel is feeling like he doesn't give a fuck right now. He's only caring at this point. He's only, taking Ellie along because this woman that he's been with for, 20 years made him promise to do it. And so he's like, fuck, whatever. She's family. I got to do this. But I think that him seeing that letter, the way it was written, just enough it gets Joel to open up just a little bit. If Bill's able to find somebody in this world worth fighting for, and he says this world needs people like you and me to protect people like that, and that's how it feels about Ellie. So I think it was a very important and crucial episode for their arc.
Well, and especially narratively for a TV show, you don't get to spend 10, 15 hours with just Joel and Ellie. Right? This is a TV show, they're going different perspectives, so you kind of have to work in those character motivations differently.
But I always I'm a sucker for a good romance, man. And those have always been my favorite stories in movies. My most favorite films generally have some type of romance in it, and I don't know what it is, but so that's why I really liked this story. But it's only 4 episodes deep. Doesn't mean it's gonna remain my favorite episode of the series, because knowing the game, I know that there's gonna be some good ass stuff coming up here, and so I'm ready for that as well. But overall, like I would say that this was I wouldn't call it the magnum opus of HBO, but it was a very good deviation from the games, because they did mention that Bill was gay in the games, but it really was kind of in passing. And you assumed that he had a relationship with Frank, but in the game, by the time you get there, him and Frank they don't even like each other anymore.
Frank killed himself.
And the only reason Bill is gay is because it happened in the show as well, but because Ellie pulls out like a gay porn mag, and she's like, what is this? And then she's like, oh, some of these pages are stuck together. It's like, just playing. And she did that in the show too, but she does that in the game, and that's the only reason that he's gay is because he had a gay magazine.
It didn't make an impact on me playing the game. I don't know if I probably picked up it during the time, but I didn't walk away with it,
like thinking
10 years later going, yeah, Bill was gay. Like it
wasn't like it was something you thought about for 10
exactly.
years.
So then let's transition this to episode 4, which in my opinion is the weakest episode of all 4.
I wanted to touch on something real quick. Episode 3 is the perfect example of how you make a change to a established story, but also be respectful and make it good.
Yes.
Looking at all the bad video game movies and The Witcher, there. Like that's they did it. They did a change and everybody loved it. It's not the thing where it's like you didn't respect. No, they respected the source material and they did it different.
They expanded on context.
It's because Neil Druckmann's heavily involved.
Yeah.
and he's he's not going to let them do anything to his material that
Well, let's talk about episode 4 then, because I'm curious. Do you still? So where does episode 4 fall for you guys then in that vein?
about them disrespecting the source material.
Well,
Not at all.
no. Well, not disrespecting the source material, but like maybe deviating a little bit from it.
It didn't really deviate in this episode.
It didn't deviate.
You mean the part they added?
Yeah.
So I'm what
More
are you
context?
talking
The
about?
the final scenes with like the group that they stumble upon with Henry and
Was I'm sorry. Did I miss something that happened that was like, whoa, this is not in the game?
I think he's talking about the girl leader of the bandits.
Yes. And there's like
oh,
they're
I didn't
giving
even
them
register
story.
that, to be honest with you. Maybe it's because I haven't played the game in like 10 years.
That's not in the game at all.
Well, it's not in the game,
yeah.
and they talk about it after the show. But my wife and I had the exact same reaction watching it. Like, you know, they get into this camp, right, and they stumble upon it, and you know, she's the one running the show, and she like blows the head off the doctor, and you know, it's clear that like Fedra and the QZ zone may have just fallen, and now there's this rebel group that's sort of risen up and is taking over and commanding the charge here. It's interesting to see like. Because afterwards, like the director was on there. It wasn't Neil Druckmann. I don't think it was the director. I think of specifically this episode, but he was like, you know, we wanted to give like this group a name, and we wanted to give them like a super strong female, you know, lead or whatever, and like strong leadership. I did not get strong leadership from her at all, man. She seemed very wavering in her language. She was not very like she seemed unfocused, and like it was like very it seemed like a group of bandits.
I didn't take it as she was a strong leader. I took it as she was somebody that people respected, and she ended up in that position, and somebody wronged her, and she's focused on revenge.
Definitely
she's
focused
not-
on revenge and blinded by that.
Yeah, she's blinded by revenge, but I didn't take it as she was necessarily the perfect person for that role, but she just ended up in that role.
I will give you this. I do remember in the episode thinking she doesn't necessarily seem like the type of person that I would
fall
follow
into that role. Yeah, right.
because she seemed a little timid and kind of. It was weird because
That's my point,
She obviously is a vengeful character and someone that is capable of being dangerous. And these people all respect her. But I did find myself questioning, like, you know, what did she do to earn these people's respect? She didn't really sell me as, like, you know, like, she didn't really sell me on the fact that she was a leader too much. But it wasn't something that I thought of for very long. Like, once I saw her go in and shoot the doctor in the head, I was like, okay, well, she's obviously not afraid to get her hands dirty. She probably did something to where they're like, okay, well, you know,
She's the boss now.
she's the boss. Let's follow her.
Yeah, she's hiding her son.
I do know in the game they don't spend very long in this
Well,
city.
I'm
so
hoping they just fucking move it along because
the
this
game
is-
doesn't end. The game that's like a
Yeah,
mission.
I know,
is
and I'm
this
hoping
game,
it's
yeah.
like literally that, like halfway. Like I don't want to spend any more time learning.
She's not
about
end
this
game.
group.
She's not end game
and
boss.
that's
you
what
know,
it makes
like-
me excited because I know that. But it's like if they're trying to introduce, like I don't want another episode dedicated to
It
this
is.
group.
The director at the end of the show, he's the director of 4 and 5.
Yeah,
That's what it
so
said.
it's
So
gonna be
he's
that. That's
talking
a
about the
good-
group. He has these 2 episodes.
That's a good insight, actually.
It's going to be these 2
That's-
episodes.
I'm not too worried about that per
'Cause-
se.
In the game, Sam and Elliot, is that the
Sam Elliott.
no? What's
The
the,
son?
other? Sam and
Isn't it
Henry?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott, Sam and Henry. As soon as the spoiler stuff happens to them, they're out of there. Like that's the end.
Yeah.
They're moved
Yeah.
on to another city. So that's all you have to wait for, Billy, is the spoiler stuff to happen to them.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about even if they do spend a lot of time on this because they're really starting to tease that they're going to start fighting some real big threats here, not just humans.
The bloater.
But like the bloaters.
Yeah.
And like, I don't give a shit who the bad guy is. That's going to take up the priority.
Is this where the high school gym scene takes place?
No, that was Bill's.
That was Bill's. You're right.
Yeah.
I wonder how they're gonna play this out then, I'm excited to see that the bloater. Did you see the preview that they showed?
Yep.
The makeup looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
But for me, the quality of this show has been so high that even though it was like a 15, 20-minute little story arc at the end of that last episode, it dropped it for me. I was like, it was just jarring. It was like you have this like heavily military group, like her second in command is clearly like this general type guy, and then her's the leader, and it was just jarring to me, and my wife and I walked away, and it was like that was kind of weird.
I would actually
Roll.
still say this isn't my least favorite, though.
Really? What was your
I
least
wasn't a
favorite?
huge fan of episode 2. Like, okay, that's not true. I've liked all the episodes, but episode 2 is probably my
least.
least favorite so far.
I love
Yeah.
that what they gave the twist with the mycelium, and they're talking about how they're gonna kind of go there. I liked that.
The reason I really like this episode is I really connect to like human like moments and personal moments, and I liked that this was the first time that Joel and Ellie started to like
Bond.
connect, and I loved that scene, the very end where he finally says a joke back and they start laughing, you know, and then it ends
What joke
on-
did he say back?
It was another pun. It was God, which one did he say?
Well, he says one earlier. But it ends with the diarrhea one.
Yeah,
Because that's they're kind of arguing,
they're just laughing,
and then
cracking
she says it, and then he cracks up and it fades to black.
And I do love their attention to detail. I love how they set up this whole thing that how he can't hear out of his
Right ear.
Right ear. And then when it shows them getting snuck up on, he's sleeping on his right ear.
His left ear.
He's sleeping on his left ear, so he
Yeah.
can't hear his right ear. I just like little things like that. I do think that this leader of this group isn't necessarily that intimidating, but I do like all of the little things that they've done. And this is still probably a good like 8 out of 10 for me this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say it'll probably always be my complaint in any episode if they kind of continue in this way. I just want more Joel and Ellie. That's
what the game was.
Yeah, that's what the game was, and while I don't necessarily hate when they take it away, and I think so far it's been good, that isn't what I want personally.
Yeah,
and a lot of people do enjoy it.
That's a good point.
But personally, I just want to see Joel and Ellie, and I want to see them bond because that's the part of the game that I bought into the most.
Yeah, that's a super good point because like that extrapolating that, like what does this like interaction, like how does that add to the story really? Like why do we need to go through this whole charade? Like does it add to the story? I would argue that the other stuff is added to the story. Any like slight deviation that they even though it's not a deviation, I get that. You come across this group at some capacity, but it is a deviation in terms of them expanding on it, giving people names, and you going through the whole motion of it.
I think The Last of Us has always been about making you understand how someone becomes the way they are. They did that, especially in The Last of Us 2. I don't know if you guys have played or watched the story of Last of Us 2, but that one focused a lot on kind of making you understand even the bad guys all have good intentions. Even like they all have good and evil. And so it's something that I feel like they're doing. And sometimes it's not as effective. I guess in this last episode it wasn't as effective as it is in the other ones. But they are always giving you a reason as to why someone behaves the way they do. And so they don't want just some nameless bad guy. Oh, this person's evil because they're evil.
Yeah.
It's this person
This is a
wants
mom
this because of what happened to her brother,
Yeah.
potentially what Henry, we don't know what he did to her, but whatever he did, she doesn't fucking like it. And then they had that whole thing where it shows Joel, that guy's begging for his life, and it doesn't show him, but he kills
straight
that.
up knifes him.
He
He saves
knifes
the
him.
bullet.
Yeah.
He saves
Saves
the
the
bullet. I
bullet.
love that touch. I'm like,
And that
yeah.
sets up a perfect example of how there's not only good in every person, there's also potentially evil in every person. And that's just the world that we live in here.
I was like waiting for the shot, and I'm like, when do we? And then you just hear, and I'm like, oh fuck,
Makes
all
sense.
right.
That's
But
what
he
I
stabbed
do in
him
the
right
game.
in the
Save
heart.
bullet.
He stabbed him right in the heart. So, no suffering.
Like an
I
18-year-old
love
kid.
how it's been 20 years, and I do love that how he hasn't lost his humanity though. The his very first thought is, you're just a kid. I'm sorry that you've been in this situation.
Yeah.
And he didn't want her to look. He told her to go in the other room. Like, at the end of the day, he's still just a
Trying
dad.
to be a dad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
So let me ask you guys, that's in the game, that's my probably favorite scene in the game as far as an action scene. The car hitting the dude, busting the store, then Joel having to fight all those guys. I felt, while I still thought it was cool, I like the game better. How did you guys feel?
I don't know if I really remember the game like slide for slide.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, to me it felt better somehow, and I don't know why.
Honestly, I think any action sequence is going to feel better if you're the one doing it.
True, yeah. So when you
yeah.
have to fight for your life as Joel, you're like, I'm fighting for my life out here.
You're watching it. When you're playing it, when you're playing the game, there's a chance that you'll die and it'll reset and you have to try again. Watching the show, you know that he's going to be okay. You know the outcome. And I think maybe that's where it might be a disservice to have played the game first, because you can't help but just compare everything to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually glad I haven't played The Last of Us in like 10 years. It's because it's much easier for me to separate myself from the game when I'm watching. I'm watching it as if I'm not looking at it like it's a game. I'm watching it as if this is a wholly original product that's being released. I'm totally separating the game. I'm getting that out of my mind because that has nothing to do with this show. And that's my thought process.
There wasn't a single zombie in that entire episode, was there?
The ground moved in the in the room.
There's a bloater.
What's strange is like, is he sleeping under that concrete or like?
I don't. That's
Doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
There's probably going to be some explanation because they knew what that meant when they saw it.
Yeah.
So
Like, is there a boiler room like that's and it's warm? So
maybe they
like
locked them down somewhere because they couldn't kill them. I don't know. You know.
Oh, that's interesting. Was that
Something
like
they-
rubble that they buried and
Yeah.
and now it's like bubbling up? They know what it's turning into.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
But overall, I thought it was a good episode. It's not my worst, like Kyle. I would say the second one was probably the weakest for me, and even weak is like not weak
Even weak, like
You think the second one is weak?
to me, just because. And like I
Interesting.
said, my complaint is always going to be I want more Joel and Ellie,
Yeah.
and I can't get enough of it.
Plus the suicide scene kind of sucked. Huh?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Just there was grenades that she threw on the floor she could have used.
I will say that did create a sense of panic because you don't want to see this person just get ripped to shreds,
Yeah.
and so you're like, fuck.
You also see like the
fuck.
very strange like makeout scene where like the
Yeah.
infection. And I don't know if they're gonna expand on that, like where.
Maybe she was just paralyzed in fear.
But he knew it. She was infected. Like the fungus could sense that, and then that's why they weren't like. That's why they're
Honestly,
running past her.
I'm actually leaning towards they just did it kind of for shock value. I don't think there's any scientific explanation as to why that happened.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I don't know. This is a.
And I can accept
It was
that.
definitely shock value because I remember watching it going. That's might be the most vile thing I've ever witnessed.
And I know you like that chick because she's from Fringe, your favorite
Yes.
show. But I'm not a huge fan of her.
Really,
To be honest, yeah.
I love her in a lot of stuff. She.
I just don't like her in this show specifically. Like in The Last of Us, she just came across like she was trying too hard.
That's kind of
Yeah.
actually that's a fair criticism because that is sort of her acting style. Like even in Fringe, and I'm literally blanking on the name on her name. I don't know why, but she has a very like overly intense, serious nature about her.
Yeah.
And it works really well in Fringe. And
Tess was like that in the game though too.
yeah.
We're
And
shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a while. Or whatever she says.
yeah. And I think that love kind of carries over into other films for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so far, I haven't. I mean, for me, I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, I feel like there hasn't been a bad episode yet.
No, definitely not.
No.
This is the worst one. But like you said, it's funny to say that because they've all been phenomenal. for me, it just got a little weird in the
It's
end.
just like a step down from
Yes.
phenomenal, but
Yeah.
it's still right up at the top, versus other shows all the way down the bottom.
It's super volatile.
But if it continues this pattern, if it follows the game, which again, like I said, I'm trying to approach it without the game in mind, but it's only going to get better.
Did
from
you
here.
guys see though that the army guy, that's the guy that voice acts Tommy in the game?
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the militia group.
I know that Troy Baker and
He's gonna be in it. I know that.
Troy Baker's going to be in it, and so is Ellie's voice actor. What's her name?
Oh,
Ashley something.
yes.
I want to say it's Ashley something. She's going to be in the game too, or the show too.
Bella Ramsey.
No, that's
No.
the actress.
the game.
the
from
game who voices Ellie. She's gonna be in the in the show. Troy Baker plays some like I don't even know, but they
Probably
released
Firefly.
some shots of him, and he's like it looks like he's being interrogated. So we'll see what that is. But
So it looks like there's going to be 9 total episodes. So we've got 5 more.
Awesome.
It's quite
it's
a
only been
bit.
4, and it feels like we're actually moving along now pretty quickly.
Yeah.
In the games, there's like a another time skip yet to happen, right? When you find your brother, where like we switch to winter.
It's before.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it by time skip, it's like what a couple months.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we need to see Ellie, because that's when she gets kidnapped.
By the Fireflies.
No, by the
Fedra.
creepy cannibal people.
That's voiced by Nolan
Oh
North.
my God.
The leader
Wow.
is voiced by Nolan North.
I'm trying. Really?
Yeah.
Who isn't voiced by him? That's crazy to me that like I'm trying like not to remember everything that happened because I want it. I'm enjoying the ride. So
So I wonder if they'll do the
That's right,
transition
dude.
the same, because in the game it makes you think almost like, did Joel die? But then
Because doesn't he like he gets impaled?
that's when he falls on the
Right.
rebar and it goes through his side, and then all of a sudden the game switches and you're Ellie, and you're hunting.
And your first thought is, oh, Joel's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll do that, because I think that'd work really well on TV too. Oh shoot, what happened to Joel? No.
No, Joel.
But yeah, so far I have faith in them.
can we talk about the 1980s style episodic release here?
Oh,
Can we fucking get over it, man?
every Friday.
Dude, I hate it, man.
Sunday?
This is
Sunday,
2023.
yeah.
Although they are releasing an episode on Friday, so they don't compete with Super Bowl this week.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why I thought Friday.
That's why you took off Friday?
Yeah.
Nice.
No, that's why I thought Friday.
Oh.
I'm so excited for episode 5.
Even though it comes out after work, I took the whole day off.
I don't know. Like I feel like if you're I don't know why they do it. I feel like there's a lot of evidence to show that like when people can binge shit, like the highs can be achieved like higher than regular television. Like think of all the stuff Netflix has put out there where people rip through and like it reaches a peak in a level of viewership because it just causes like this month-long period of like that's all people could talk about. Have you seen it? Have you seen it? When you do this, it's like more. It's a long, prolonged reaction time. But
I'm starting to actually think that I'm okay with the weekly releases
To be devil's advocate,
because
Billy.
it gives me something to look forward to every week. I'm starting to actually enjoy it now. I was on your side, like literally if you would have talked to me about this months ago. But now that this is the first time I've been into a show where this in a long time that's released like this, I'm cool with it because I look forward to it every week and it gives me a chance to discuss and theorize with you guys.
Yeah, and I would say there's positives to both, because I think certain shows are built for binge and certain shows are not. And then like if you look at it, episode 3, Bill and Frank, if it was the whole season, that might have not been as big of an impact as people made it to be, because that was your one episode that night, and then it was over, and you had to sit there and think about it and digest it. And I don't know if it was all packaged together, I don't know if it would have that same impact.
Would they have
They
been
could just
talking
blast
about
right past it.
episode 3?
Yeah.
It's hard to say because I mean, Stranger Things. That's what comes to mind as far as like the opposite of that. They don't ever talk about specific episodes. They only ever talk about characters and moments. But I still think that it gets talked about a lot,
Yeah.
even though they release everything all up front.
Well, I actually liked how the Stranger Things did things their last season. It was split up into 2 parts. So like they had like 4 or 5 episodes released with each side. And then it was like 2 or 3 weeks where they released the next part. It wasn't like a month or 2 that you're waiting forever to watch about and you kind of forget everything. Like it was like, hey, here, we can leave it on a cliffhanger and stuff. And, they could have done that with this show where it was like 1 through 3 and it ends up with, 1 through 4, let's say. So you get to see how Joel reads the letter and stuff like that. And then, you go with, the back 5 or whatever, the last 5 episodes. I don't know. Like, I think it's ridiculous for this day and age to do like weekly episodes for people's attention span. I don't know. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. It's working and it's not wrong by any means, but man, I like to there's something about a show when I can sit down and watch 8 episodes in a row or 9, whatever it is. The context and the things that I pick up on, the subtleties, like it's amazing. Like my comprehension is
It's
so
also,
much better.
I think a reason why I'm appreciating the weekly release though too is, it's like a family event now. Like my whole family, like we gather on Sundays to watch it.
Really?
Yeah, like my sister, my parents,
Wow.
me and my wife, like my sister's boyfriend, like we all watch it on Sundays. And it's something to look forward to. And I would not want to sit and binge an entire series
Fuck
of
no.
something with my parents,
No.
but I can appreciate that we now have something to look forward to with them as like a group event, I think that there are pros and cons, but I think, if it's something that I am watching by myself, then I would much rather just sit and just binge through the whole thing. But in this specific situation, I appreciate the weekly release, but I also get what you're saying because there's been times where I'm like, what are we doing here? Like,
Well, especially for a show like this, like I would wager like 50% of the people watching this have either already spoiled the entire fucking series thing to them or they played the games.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
They've shown that they're not afraid to change when they think it betters the story though. So we'll see what happens. I don't think they're going to change anything on The Last of Us Part 1, or Season 1 rather. But when it comes to The Last of Us Part 2, I don't know. Okay, I was a huge Last of Us Part 2 hater when it first got like spoiled and like that when I saw the whole arc. But now that I've actually, a couple months ago, I actually went through and I played and I beat it. And I gotta say, it was a pretty fucking good game, even with those moments. But there are moments that I think they could have handled better. And I think the show, it'll be a good opportunity to potentially do that.
Well, I mean, I think I'm fine with what they did. I was a big hater as well. And I still think that, like I said, they should have handled it better. I have an easy, simple fix too. Just rearrange the timeline and have you, in my opinion, I would rather have me become connected and humanized to Abby before what Abby does to Joel. And I think that works so much better. In my personal opinion, if I start the game playing as her and I build my attachment to her and her group of friends, and then I see what happens, and then it switches me to Ellie. Okay.
They do a good job though in the game. Even though I agree, the timeline makes it's hard the way they did it, but they do a really good job on making you sympathize with Abby in the game afterwards. And I think that's why they did it the way they did, to be like, see, we've made you appreciate this person that you hated in the beginning because everyone in this world is a victim. And I think that's what they're going for. If you take what happened out of context from the rest of the game, it's very easy to be like, what the fuck? But I would say that for anyone that's upset with how the game opens up, it just put in another 6 hours at minimum before you give up on it. But it took me a long time I didn't play it for a long ass time because I was like, fuck this. I'm not playing that. And I finally was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. That's completely separate though from the show.
I wonder what they'll do with it. Now, with this success, I wanted to ask you guys. Sony is seeing the dollar signs, and they've announced that they have ideas for other video game licenses as
God
media.
of War. Is that we?
God of War.
Ratchet and Clank.
I heard it's Amazon though.
Why wouldn't they just continue to release to HBO? Like,
I know.
obviously HBO does good.
I don't know. That has the part.
I'm
the
worried.
only
Yeah, but
I'm
Amazon could
worried.
do better.
Then HBO? HBO historically has had the best shows.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think they're just trying. Maybe they'll feed them. They won't feed them like maybe God of War, but they'll feed them like maybe a smaller.
No, like that's who
Oh, they've already signed.
I think.
Well, it also goes to the highest bidder too, right? There's money at play, and then it's on Amazon. It's really not on Sony. Sony already created the golden product.
True.
It's on Amazon to fuck it
I'm
up.
pretty sure I read that they're going to do a Ghost of Tsushima
Movie.
series. Is it a series or movie?
Movie. I just looked it up right now to see what ones
That
they've
could
confirmed.
be, if treated properly, that could be fucking great.
Yes. So they have as far as stuff in the works, they have Twisted Metal
Interesting. That's
On
a weird
Peacock.
property.
on and NBC Peacock, Ghost of Tsushima as a movie, and it's gonna be with the director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski,
Oh shit! So it's going to be action heavy.
which is cool.
That could be cool.
And then they have God of War, Amazon, Sony president Jim Ryan confirmed via Q&A May 26th they would adapt it in TV series. They only know the streaming platform. That's all the info we have on that. Horizon, is that Horizon Zero Dawn, Netflix, Gran Turismo movie.
Racing movie?
Yeah, I know. There's no story there besides racing.
What's one property that they haven't announced that Sony owns that you're like,
Well, they have
I would love to see.
Jack and Daxter here.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring them up. They
Jack
have
and
that.
Daxter.
I would love to see Jack and Daxter. I'm a big fan. I don't understand why they haven't touched them since. It wasn't like their games.
Well, that was Naughty Dog, right?
Yeah.
I think they just moved on.
Well, but they could do like what Crash?
I was
Crash
just gonna say
Bandicoot
Crash Bandicoot. That would be
is
cool.
Naughty Dog.
Yeah, but they didn't release the Insane trilogy or the remaster. That wasn't that Naughty
Yeah,
Dog.
so
that
they
did
could
that.
pass it off to some other.
Well, they could, but I think Naughty Dog actually still has the rights to that character. They haven't released it yet. Is why they haven't.
Why?
Because they found massive success with Uncharted, and then even more with The Last of Us, which are completely different than Jack and Daxter.
Yes, true.
And Crash Bandicoot. I still love in Uncharted 4 when you could play Crash Bandicoot.
That's such a cool scene.
And Nate, he's like, I don't understand why am I collecting these apples? That doesn't make any sense in this game. He's like, I would have just climbed around. I don't know why I can't do that.
It's like, why am I running
But
towards
he's like
the camera?
roasting the character, which is like super meta because it is a Naughty Dog character. Uncharted 4 was good, man.
It was so good. What do you
whole
think they'll do
series.
next?
Uncharted?
No, Naughty Dog.
Oh,
I think they said they're done with Uncharted.
I think they're done with Last of Us also.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a totally brand new IP,
I think, yeah.
and I'd like to see them maybe do something like maybe less narrative based.
Dak and Jackster.
Would you like to see them go back to the more lighthearted stuff?
Yeah, I would actually like just something that was a lot more like gameplay focused than
Like Jack and Daxter.
Yeah, or even Crash or something like that would be kind of interesting to see them do that.
Insomniac goes back and forth a lot.
That is
Um,
true, actually.
Insomniac, they just did their Ratchet and
Yep.
Clank,
Infamous.
and then they did Infamous. They did
No, that was Sucker Punch.
that was
Sorry.
Sucker Punch, yeah. But they did Spider-Man.
Yes.
And they're working on Spider-Man 2, which we're getting more info on. Wolverine. But like Insomniac's not afraid to go all over the spectrum as far as like genres.
Yeah.
They're all platforming, but like storytelling wise.
How big is Insomniac?
Not
They have multiple
huge.
studios?
Do they?
Well, they have to because I feel like Spider-Man 1 came out around the same time Rift Apart did. So I think they have multiple.
Rift Apart came out. Spider-Man came out in 2018. Rift Apart came out like 2020.
But I feel like they have to have multiple studios working on their different games.
I don't think so, man.
Really?
Yeah, they might have an A team and a B team.
They must have that.
We got about 400 employees.
So 200 working on one, 200 on the other.
That's actually relatively small for a massive AAA studio.
You think so?
Yeah. Look how many employees work for Ubisoft.
Yeah, but Ubisoft is like a fucking conglomerate, man.
Yeah.
They have Ubisoft Montreal,
Yeah,
Ubisoft
dude.
Quebec.
Rockstar, like
the publisher,
Rockstar
they're
San
the
Diego,
fucking-
Rockstar West, or whatever.
Give me another Spyro.
I
They
wouldn't-
did make new ones.
Yeah, I know. They just had a remake that was pretty fucking good.
It was Toys for Bob.
Was that the name of it?
That's the name of the studio. Insomniac
Yeah.
did the originals, but Toys for Bob did the
Oh.
remake. The remaster.
But yeah, I would like to see them go more traditional. Or I just go back to Jack and Daxter, please.
Yeah.
I just feel like
I
want to
see
Go ahead.
the same treatment Ratchet and Clank got as far as like graphics, fidelity given to Jack and Daxter. Because they've interacted before, those
Yeah.
characters, and I feel like how they made Ratchet and Clank look, it would look amazing as Jack and Daxter.
Do you remember Daxter on the PSP?
Oh, I love that game.
Dude, I used to play that all the time.
It was so good. Ratchet, Secret Agent,
Yeah.
those were both amazing games.
They were like spin-offs where you played as the sidekick characters.
But they were amazing in their own
Yeah.
right.
So,
PSP
yeah,
games were fun.
PSP was underrated.
It was. And I feel like they put a lot of effort into those games. Those weren't cheap
Yeah.
like knockoff games. Those were good.
But like to the parent that's gonna buy a handheld, they're like DS or PSP. I feel like my son's gonna like a DS more than a PSP.
What is this? The PS? Look at these little weird shaped discs. This
I don't know about this at all. I've heard of Mario.
Pokemon, yes. Pokemans.
Pokemans with the Peekabloos.
They catch them all, right? I don't know, man. I feel like I would just love a lot more focus around gameplay. Like I feel like
Of course you would, you son of a.
I feel
No
like the
story.
market is littered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the market right now is just littered with narrative-based stuff, and that only goes so far for me. I when I look at like the release stuff, like for this year, I'm not too excited. Like I don't get like really hyped. Hogwarts Legacy has hyped me up simply because I think the
Diablo
combat
hyped
looks
the hell out of
interesting.
you with the trailer.
Yeah, but I said I've never played Diablo, and I probably won't play this one. I just thought it was the fucking coolest trailer of all
So
time.
this is the greatest trailer I've ever seen.
Dude, it was so sick, man. It was like when that thing.
I know he's
man.
your least favorite hero, but Spider-Man's coming to PC. Maybe we should give him a chance.
I think the gameplay in it.
You would probably like the gameplay,
I
even though you don't
probably
like the
would like the
character.
gameplay.
You'd probably like the gameplay.
But I look at the slate of release stuff, and I just don't get too jazzed. I want cool gameplay, but I want it to be online, man. It needs to be online.
Why does it need to be online?
Because I like that competitiveness, like that competitive atmosphere. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
building towards something. I can collect things. Like that's why I just love MMOs, because I feel like all of my interests are synergized. Like not only can I love PV. I don't need to get into it. I like the ability to play a game, get really good at the combat, have really interesting combat skill trees, builds, and then be able to play in a social element where I can either engage with the people or not. I have the choice, because there's times I want to do it and there's times I don't. And then I have the ability to play a wide variety of content within that landscape, and grind towards and achieve towards like really things that are valuable.
So
like
Destiny.
getting a fucking platinum trophy in Steam is so uninteresting.
So Destiny 2.
Destiny's combat sucks, man. I'm sorry. I know it's been
It
reworked,
does
so
not
yes,
suck.
it absolutely
They're
sucks.
one of the
dude.
best combat
Shut
shooters
the
out there.
fuck up. Okay, best combat shooter.
Bungie can make
I
a
wouldn't
can-
even give you that. I wouldn't even. Give
I
you
can
that.
get on board with a lot of reasons as to why Destiny might not be good, but to say the combat sucks is a little.
For what they've classified that game as, like in terms of like if I'm gonna play an MMO,
We've been over this. They have never once called themselves an MMO. I think you think that.
what are you talking
And that's
about? That was
warped
their
your
whole
whole
release.
No, they have never once called themselves an MMO.
Dude, I'm gonna find content that they literally put out.
It's totally
calling
warped
itself-
your whole opinion on it because you think that.
Well,
they think-
whatever it is,
they
it's a
think it's an
dungeon.
MMO.
It's a dungeon. What do you? What is that game?
What?
A shooter, online shooter.
It's a massive multiplayer
Shut
on
the fuck up, dude. It's just not like
It's not an MMO, and I
It's
don't
a
think they
shooter.
would call themselves an
No.
MMO.
It's a shooter with really interesting level. It's got great level design. I will definitely give it that. But the combat on it, like, and again, it's been reworked. I have not addressed it since then. The combat on it is such a fucking lame experience. Why are my abilities set to like a timer cooldown that takes minutes to use? It's so uninteresting.
You're still salty about hitting the wrong button when they told you to lay down a gravity well.
I'm not salty about that at all.
I have a lot of
doing
complaints about
a
Destiny.
mid-tier raid, with the fucking most experienced group of all time, and they're yelling at me to put down this thing, and I thought I was. I don't fucking know.
I have a lot of complaints
shit.
about Destiny, but yeah, the gameplay has never been one of them.
No.
But
they have
I'm a totally different kind of gamer than you, so I get it.
It's
So
not
what-
bad. It's fucking shit.
what
Just kidding. I'm
game
just kidding. I'm
far out, Billy, are you most excited for? Maybe
Right now, Hogwarts Legacy.
No, like years out. That
Oh,
is
years
your
out?
ideal game.
Honestly, Starfield looks kind of interesting, and I know that that's kind of hilarious to you guys.
The
What, you're not interested in that?
No, I'm just you.
It looks like it can be. Now we haven't.
It's not
heard enough.
online.
I know it's not online.
It's not-
I know it's not online, but the things that you can do in that game, it looks interesting enough to me. It doesn't like one. I don't know how narrative based it's going to be. It looks more like an exploratory type thing.
It's gonna be
No Man's
hugely
Sky.
narrative based
And
because
well,
it's
going to
Bethesda.
have that for sure. But I don't think that's. I think like if you put 100 hours in the game, I think probably 20 hours are going to be dedicated to
It's
like
Skyrim
main
in
story.
space. They said.
Did they actually say that? They didn't actually.
It's like
say those
Skyrim
words,
with
did
guns.
I think
But
they
they
did.
didn't say that though. I know that what you guys are memeing right now. I don't know if did they actually say it's Skyrim in space. That's fucking disappointing. But I think like that's the one that would come to mind in terms of what I'm probably most jazzed for. I Am Jesus Christ 2, I think, is on the slate for later
Dude.
this year. No,
Most
you know what?
disappointing non-release. It's still in beta.
Okay.
Read that out.
Okay, speaking of Washington Post, Todd Howard said who's Todd Howard? Is he the game
He's
director?
the big guy.
Okay, said Starfield is like Skyrim in space. Okay, well, I just got way less excited for that because that's just like I hope he said that mockingly because like that's such a fucking meme over the last decade. How many games? It's like Skyrim, but this setting, right? You know what? So I'm interested. I'm keeping my eye on that. We don't know really enough about it. I'm keeping my eye on it because I think it could be a massive release. It'd be interesting to see what they come out with.
I definitely want to keep my eye on it.
Yeah.
I love Fallout. I love that the choice narrative based games, or even and I love space. And
Yeah.
it seems like it should be the perfect mix. But Fallout 4 was a little bit of a disappointment. And Fallout 76, I didn't even touch with the 10-foot pole because I knew how it was going to be horrible. And now this, I don't know if I trust them fully yet, but I'm definitely watching.
I'm excited for Wo Long. I'm excited for that one. I don't know is that one coming out. We don't have an exact release date for that, right? I think it's coming out this year, but we don't know the date. I'll throw a curveball at you guys. There's a good MMO called Ashes of Creation that's been in development for quite some time. It's an MMO that is absolutely gorgeous, which is probably the least most important thing about an MMO, believe it or not. It's completely about the content and the gameplay. And I think in 2023, I think I want to get a little bit more into MMOs again. That's a dangerous
how long is
step.
March 3rd?
March 3rd. Oh shit, we're coming up on that fast then. Okay, cool. I think Ashes of Creation. I don't know if I don't even think that's slated to release this year. It's coming out, I think maybe next year, but I see a lot of content every once in a while on it about like game updates, and they're taking their time like really showcasing the games and talking about the different classes, and the combat looks fucking sick. So I'm
That
actually
game
excited
looks
about
right
that.
up your alley. I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Ashes of Creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Now-
well, knowing your predisposition towards that type of game, getting back into MMOs is a dangerous pastime for you.
Well, because it's all or nothing, dude. You can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to play an MMO casually, at least in my brain.
I think that's
It
why
doesn't
I
happen.
think that's why I've never been able to get hooked on one, because
Yeah,
I've never been able to get hooked on something that I have to dedicate. Like if I can't play it casually, then
Mhm.
it doesn't interest me.
I feel like you would potentially get into an MMO like really hardcore for like 100 hours. And then
Well,
once
that's
you
just
got
it.
through, once you got through the story and maybe you geared your character the way that you wanted to, once it became to like where you had to take that next step into doing like community content where like
be
you're doing
out.
dungeons with other people and like you'd be like, I don't really want to group up and I don't want to learn the mechanics and learn
You
my
know,
role in this.
the social aspect of gaming is probably my least favorite
That's so crazy. You guys
Same.
thing about gaming.
We need a fourth fucking member on this podcast to balance that.
And I'm gonna just say it. I've never once played an MMO that had good gameplay. I'm sorry.
Agree.
There is nothing fun about clicking on skills
Yes.
and like moving around. That's so boring.
And waiting for your character to hit. And hit. And hit.
What fucking were you
And
playing?
hit.
RuneScape?
There's a
There's
strategy.
so many MMO games like that.
I don't think that
Bad
strategy
ones.
and like IQ when it comes to knowing how to do something, I don't think that translates to good gameplay for me. Like knowing exactly how to click something and what order to do something and how to properly rotate your skills. I'm not saying that doesn't take skill. That takes a massive amount of skill, but that doesn't mean it's fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the kind of gamer I am.
That's a hot take.
That might be fun for you, but that's not fun for me.
What's fun for me is when you do. So metas in MMO, because it's a live service game, like they change. So like the rotations of your skills are constantly changing. Sometimes there's dry spells where you might be doing it for optimally a year, but you don't always have to play that. You can manage it around it. But like I think what game? Just tell me a game that has good gameplay that you. So maybe you defend Destiny or whatever, where you don't click a skill. I'm trying to use that. What you
that you
said
don't click
there. Like that you're
a
not
game that has good gameplay that you don't click
that
on
you're not
skills.
clicking skills that you just don't feel like you're.
Uncharted.
So define clicking a skill.
Well, like so you said that like you think clicking a skill is super boring, right?
Yeah, but if I like say like Elden Ring using a spell, is that going to be you saying, "Oh, that's clicking a skill"? What I'm saying is you got a skill bar, and you got like all these different skills, and you have to click everything in a certain way for it to affect a certain thing. Like it doesn't feel like reactive. It feels like this is exactly what I have to do to beat whatever we're doing, versus basically any action game out there. You're playing on instinct.
It's reactionary.
And it's reactionary, and you're like Batman games, all the Arkham games, all the like those all have great gameplay, and it's not like when I go in and fight Deathstroke, I have to do this at this second. I have to do this once I see this pop. I have to no, it's this guy's attacking me. What do I need to do to beat him?
I have to make sure to
Parry,
counter.
attack, like any FromSoft game. Any like that's what I'm talking about. I think there's almost MMOs because it's the way I don't know.
That's not a bad
It
take.
almost requires MMOs require too much strategy.
Too much team.
It requires too much teamwork. Everyone has to be doing
Where you
everything perfectly.
Yeah, you just fall into the fold. of it.
And at that
see.
point, for me, it becomes less of a game and it
Mhm.
becomes work.
More about numbers, and that's not a bad take, because I would agree that there's a lot of MMOs out there that are just that, where the combat historically and remember, all the MMOs that are truly successful are old. Like Guild Wars 2 is sort of an anomaly because it came out in like 2011. Like Black Desert Online maybe has it, like Final Fantasy 14. Like, okay, that still has a community. I don't know what year that actually officially came out, but like
That one
those are-
recovered. That one was horrible at first.
well, yeah,
Right?
yeah, but like these communities, like World of Warcraft, like they're legacy communities, man. Like new MMOs often struggle big time. Like New World, Lost Ark, these things are almost like dead
Destiny.
games at this point. Lost Ark, I actually think, is making a comeback, but Destiny,
Just
this
fucking
fucking
with
guy. But that's this could be a whole other debate episode.
This
I
could
don't
go
wanna drag it
very
out.
long
Yeah.
if we.
But like, I don't like those games. I think I want to roll, and I want to have a defined role, and I want the combat to be interesting. If I just stood there like RuneScape or a lot of the content that I see in WoW, where it's like you're just fucking like huddled together, spamming like a skill bar that takes up half your fucking screen, like that's not interesting
Yeah.
to me at all. But there's mechanics of like some MMOs where, like in Guild Wars 2 specifically, because I'll just speak of that game because I put the most time into it. Like there's a dodge mechanic. You could dodge any single thing. There's area of effect stuff, so you have to constantly be moving. Like the combat is way more involved from like a movement standpoint than like in Guild Wars 1, where it was like stand and smash. That's
Yeah.
like I think your point is valid with the overall market of MMOs. I definitely, especially when you get into like 40-man raids in WoW, like what the fuck are you actually doing? Like, you know, you have 40 people there. Like that's like, to me, like world content, which is the most boring shit in Guild Wars 2, like where you go kill a world boss and it's like this giant demon spawns. You're surrounded by fucking 80 people all just smashing auto attack, and you just see its health die, and you're like, this is just so boring.
I do
I
think
think that's a valid criticism.
fun gameplay is also very much dependent on who you ask.
Absolutely.
I don't-
Everybody likes, yeah, absolutely.
Just because I don't like when I feel like it loses gameplay and it turns into, you know, work to figure out how to do something, doesn't mean that some people love that. Some people like the fact that it takes more brain power to get something done, and it takes strategy, and it takes a team-based effort. And some people want to just go in and, you know, fucking go nuts and like go guns a-blazing and wing it. And normally when I'm playing a game, it's because I'm trying to like not necessarily turn my brain off, but I don't want to have to feel like I need to do everything perfectly to get something done. And even in From Software games, I feel like that game, people talk about how, oh, they're so hard, they're so this and they're so that. I feel like that game's extremely forgiving on being able to just bum rush and figure out, you know, an enemy based on just having fun with it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and in video games, when I sit down, I want to be involved in the world, and I've never felt that when playing a multiplayer game. Destiny, I think that's the biggest thing that works against it, is when you're multiplayer and you're sitting in the lobby with your friends, nobody's going to fucking watch the cutscene. No.
I hate when people talk over
Yeah,
cutscenes.
people are going to talk over it. You can't hear anything. You're one guy, I got to go to the bathroom real quick. And then, you know, and it's just like, I go for that. And in a multiplayer, that's the one thing that gets taken away. Because it makes it feel like you're playing a game versus letting you fully
Immerse.
immerse yourself. it pulls you out.
But there is something to be said about
Why don't you guys get into role playing and just fucking hang out? There's a whole beach area in Goers 2 where people do erotic role plays.
that's
and-
not
Erotic
fun.
role plays?
Yeah, man.
Well,
You can just
Fucking-
have fun.
Kyle.
My favorite part about Guild Wars 2 is jumping puzzles. That's honestly,
That's a great fun
Yeah.
little mini game that they have there. They got hundreds of them.
but yeah, I don't know. To
Everybody-
each their own.
yeah,
And if you
absolutely.
talk to somebody passionate enough about what they enjoy, they'll convince you as to why it's good. Because, whenever you talk to me about MMOs and why you love MMOs, it sways me to where I'm like, yeah, I could see why that would be enjoyable. But, my brain is just
Yeah, you guys
wired differently.
You play games, and you've made this comment before. You play games to decompress, to relax, to shut the brain off, and just chill, right? And so the narrative type games play perfectly into that, where you can just take the story fed to you and enjoy it, right? I don't play games to have fun. I play games to fucking grind.
To be the best.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And so that's how I've literally always played any game. Doesn't matter.
You
So-
could have done a case study of all three of us with Elden Ring, and you could have seen the results of that case study, and you would see our exact personality types.
Honestly, I think all three of us played that very differently.
Yeah.
We totally
Billy,
did.
master of none, or master of all.
Yeah, such an unoptimized
Master
garbage-ass
of
build.
none, where he I'm gonna try and get to at least 50 in every skill.
So bad.
And then
To where I get to max level and I'm actually doing less damage than when
I
ran
literally-
the lead build. What a disaster.
I got the sword I liked, and then I just rode that for the entire rest of the whole game. Didn't experiment with one build.
That's what I did too. I found the gut sword, and I was like, but see, the thing with that is I didn't like it at first. I was like, I'm gonna force myself to play this, and then I liked it once I learned it.
I literally I leveled up vigor to the soft cap, which is 60, I think. And then I didn't level up anything else. And I rode that all the way to the end, and I was just face tanking hits and slicing. It's just weird, that's an example of a game where you can do it in so many different ways. And
Yep. I ran the areas to try and farm out, 5 levels so I could wield this weapon because I, didn't have this strength. And so I needed the strength. So I'm like,
I
got
want to be able to wield every
fucking
weapon.
just so bad.
you're like, I don't want to come
suck
across
at
a
those games.
single thing that I can't wield.
It's such a garbage ass ideology.
But I will admit, Billy, while I do believe everything that I've
suck
said
as a human
tonight,
being.
I do believe everything I've said tonight, and I will support what I've said. I did say it to see your reaction when I was like, I've never played an MMO that had good gameplay. I believe that firmly, I do, but I know the fires that I'm stoking when I say that.
About 10,000 hours worth of fires. When my whole thing is I just want the good gameplay. That's all
All
I
right.
play.
Dylan, where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram, Twitter, as well as any podcast listening platform, and YouTube, where we post a daily, or not daily, a weekly stream.
We're hitting it hard.
Yeah, we're doing daily stream, weekly stream, shorts, and we upload this podcast as a kind of audio.
And we're going to soon be getting into pants, too. So
Yeah.
not just shorts.
Shirts, maybe.
Oh my
Flip-flops.
gosh, guys. This is funny content. We're Zoomers.
Yeah.
No, we're not. We established this earlier.
We're millennials.
Zoomer. Millennial. You're a millennial. We're all millennials.
Yeah. I might be a boomer.
Maybe a mindset.
Yes. Maybe.
Depends on what you're talking about. Boomer would not be in an MMO.
No, definitely not.
Well, wait.
Maybe.
You'd be a Gen X.
Oh, I've definitely played with boomer. That's the craziest shit to come
Yeah.
across is when, as a 16-year-old kid, you jump into a chat and there's someone clearly in their no joke 70s, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you talk to other people how old is that dude? Oh, he's 78 years old. There's plenty of times I came across that. That shit is wild. That shit is
That
wild.
is
Yeah.
worrisome.
I want to be that old guy, man.
I'll be that old guy playing a single player game.
Yep.
You're gonna be like, "Hey, Kai,
story.
you're playing the new Guild Wars 15." And I'll be like,
Ghost of Tsushima 8 just came out. It's so good.
Oh, they're only at 8 by then?
Yeah.
I'd hope we'd be further.
Nah, man. We're not even that far away. That's like every 6,
"We're not that
7
far
years.
away from 80."
No, dude. Think about it.
It's kind of sad, actually.
50 years?
Life is flashing
51 years?
right before us.
No.
And with that,
It's like every 6, 7 years, dude.
remember, with the good KD, you get the dub.
And you grow old.
And you grow old.
Bye, guys.